Hey dreamers, welcome back to the world of Tana Dreams. Today I thought I'd show you how I made a smoother transition from digital art to traditional art. If you've been following my channel for a while, you would know that I began drawing in 2018. I started off with mainly pencil drawings, then I transitioned to using digital art. But I haven't done as much traditional art since that transition. I do have a few sketchbooks meant to make sure that I don't completely lose it, I have noticed that one of the toughest transitions from digital to traditional art is that there is no undo button, and depending on the medium, you may not be able to fix the mistake. You know how you tap with 2 fingers to undo something on Procreate? I sometimes double tap on a piece of paper instead of erasing, only to realizing I'm tapping on a piece of paper. Have any of you ever done this, by the way? Anyways, I have had quite a number of pieces I wanted to do traditionally. It didn't end up well, so I switched to digital media. So I wanted to go ahead and share with you this process I took to see if I could get a better outcome. I also wanted to observe whether or not I could get a method that would lower the risk of failure and the chances of becoming frustrated. Because for newer artists who may want to make a similar transition like I did, I want to make sure you can have a smoother transition, and especially to make sure you don't become frustrated. So what you've been watching is me developing the sketch for the piece I'm going to do. The first step I thought I should take is to sketch on digital media instead of on paper, because on digital media you can turn on drawing guides, the program can help you eye out any focal points, you can make selections and modify sizes or proportions, and overall you can easily fix mistakes much easier than having to erase pencil sketches from your canvas and degrade the quality of that canvas. On top of the sketch, I then drew the line layer. As you can tell, I'm drawing a Halloween piece of a little mage boy trying to take control of his little bat lemur griffin thing named Lucky. Fun fact, this is supposed to represent how I feel when I walk my own dog sometimes. I feel like I'm running on air. Let me address this right now. I'm not saying I invented this process, but I haven't seen too many artists do this process. I usually see artists on YouTube do the process the other way around, as in from traditional to digital. I might not have been looking hard enough though, but in other words, I'm not taking credit for this process. Next, I began preparations for the piece to be transitioned onto traditional media. My supplies were my 11x14 watercolor canvas from Amazon, Faber Castell Albrecht Dürer watercolor pencils, Craftsmart paintbrushes, and Micron pens. I've actually had these Albrecht Dürer watercolor pencils since 2019. They were a gift from my godmother. I am very grateful for her, by the way. I haven't used them in a little while though, so I couldn't completely remember their quality. So I got a piece of mixed media paper and tested out the colors I thought I would be using for the piece. I usually recommend always testing your media because the packaging almost never gives you an accurate representation of the color quality. If you're wondering what the numbers I'm writing are, the pencils are labeled with a number code, so I'm writing that to distinguish which one is which. With that, here is the color key I created. The first thing I will point out is that these watercolor pencils have a very nice consistency, and a little goes a long way, which is great. This following step, let me warn you, I didn't really like doing it. I took a picture of the color key, imported it into Procreate, and then used the eyedropper tool to get the colors and test them on the digital media. I labeled the layers based on the number coding of the watercolor pencils. The colors look really flat because I didn't want to spend too much time on gradient, shading, or texture. I knew the watercolor canvas would naturally take care of that. However, I knew that this is really not an accurate representation of how the piece would end up looking like. I was basically just testing to make sure I like color schemes. As you can tell, I did switch out some of them and made sure certain colors popped out enough to lead the viewer's eyes to the focal points. The focal point being Lucky's face. The background color, I had to take a chance on that and mix 2 of the main colors together because I didn't want a plain dark blue or purple color, as the characters could blend in with the backgrounds. I would say that this step is best for testing color schemes and making sure composition is appropriate. I would just skip the taking the picture and importing it and using the eyedropper tool steps. It really didn't help. Now came the big part of transferring the digital piece onto the watercolor canvas. What I did was I took a lighting board from an animation kit I had and placed it beneath the canvas and a printed copy of the piece so I could just trace over it with my Pigma Micron pens, thus eliminating the need for a pencil sketch layer. After the line art was done, I laid down the colors of the watercolored pencils. I referred mainly to my color key and only a little bit to my Procreate piece. I recommend placing down all your colors first, and then to prevent your workspace from getting clustered, only take 1 or 2 pencils out at a time. As I mentioned earlier in this video, a little goes a long way for these pencils, so I just laid down a modest amount of lead to get a decent base layer. If it ends up being too light, you can just add more layers of color later. Now here comes the magical part, adding the water. I know watercolors are not an easy medium, like they really aren't. It's really loose and it takes skill to make order out of the disorder. Here's a little tip to prevent watercolors from leaking with each other. After you finish painting on one part of the piece, paint a different feature that's far away from the first part. That way, the first piece will be dry by the time you get back to it. I will say that I was really impressed with the watercolor paper that I was using. The texture was really clean, and the other brands I used in the past were usually really spotty and sometimes had big bumps. This one retained the water well, didn't dry out too quickly, and kept a really smooth surface. I was also really satisfied with the Faber Castell Albrecht Dürer watercolor pencils. After adding water, you can see that the consistency was really beautiful. Usually, watercolors under $20 leave a very chalky texture that degrades the quality of the piece, but these guys didn't do that, and any patches or puddles looked really intentional. My one nitpick was that there was no skin or flesh color available, so I had to improv by using a really light layer of cream color and then blotting it off. For the background, I mixed a dark purple and dark blue color to create a very whimsical, mysterious feeling. Yes, you can mix colors with these pencils pretty easily, you just draw one color over another. I did the same thing with the leaves. I mixed certain tones of orange, yellow, and red, as well as some shades of brown as well. I took a break after applying all the base layers to allow the piece to dry. Yes, I do highly recommend taking breaks when doing big art projects, not only to allow the medium to settle and dry, but to also make sure you feel more relaxed and refreshed when you return to your work. After the base layer was done drying, I applied another layer of watercolor pencil to serve as the shading. With the exception of the leaves and the red to add blushing, I used the same color as the base layer, only in a heavier concentrate. Little tip, if you want a watercolor layer to be a lighter value, just add more water or use less pigment. Next, apply the water again to those layers. If you notice me going back over parts that I already watered down, that's me just smoothing out the consistency and removing any patchy spots that don't look pretty. Also, by doing this, you can create a nice gradient effect that can serve as a mid-tone layer. I finish off the piece by using these felt tip pins to fill in any spaces that are meant to be black, such as Lucky's eyes or the mouth. With that, here is the little mage boy. I was really happy with this new method and the outcome of the piece. I thought it turned out well for someone who hasn't touched watercolor pencils in a while. I still have a lot to learn, but I can safely say that the Faber Castell Albrecht Dürer watercolors are great. They are easy to activate, have a nice consistency, and a very smooth blending. I do wish they were a tad bit stronger and more vibrant, and that there was maybe a flesh-colored pencil offered in the set. Maybe swap it with one of the reds or yellows because there was an abundance of them. They are worth the price you get them though. As for the process, I would say that the digital sketch and line art steps work great for eliminating the sketch phase on the watercolor canvas. The digital coloring is mostly good for testing color schemes and focal points, but may get a bit frustrating because it's not too accurate of what will be laid down on paper. I do want to do more pieces this way though, but please let me know what you think. Thank you all so much for watching. Please don't forget to give the video a like and subscribe to the channel. The world of Tan and Dreams is full of art, creativity, and positivity, and I would love to see you again. Have a wonderful rest of your day. May all your sweet dreams come true.